Hey everybody, I'm Kat Carter from Hubbub Fundraising. Thanks so much for joining Justin and I for today's webinar. If you joined us live or are watching the recording, we hope that what we'll cover in the next hour will be useful for you. So whether you've postponed your current giving day or are considering running a giving day in the next few months, Justin and I will provide clear strategies and best practice for how to move forward with planning a successful giving day given the current climate which we're all facing. These are difficult and strange times. However, there are still many ways that we can mindfully move forward and remain engaged with our alumni, while also providing opportunities for donors to support the areas of their lives that they are most passionate about. So we've pre-recorded the main portion of this webinar, trying as best as we could to ensure that your experience wouldn't be interrupted by poor internet speed or technical glitches on our part. But once the main portion of the webinar has finished, Justin and I will be both on hand and live to answer any questions from those who are attending the live broadcast. If you do have any questions at any time, please enter them using the questions tab of the webinar control panel. And we'll try and get to as many of those as possible in the time that we have today. And with that, let's get started. So as I mentioned, I'm Kat Carter, and I'm head of marketing and a digital giving specialist here at Hubbub. I've been with the team just over 3 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with partners all over the world to run successful giving days of varying different sizes. Previous to joining Hubbub, I managed mass participation giving at the University of Southampton, which is here in the UK, for just over 7 years. And I was lucky enough to work on some amazing projects while at the university, including launching the UK's first crowdfunding program, being a part of the team that led on their first multi-million-pound capital campaign, and managing the institution's direct mail, telephone, and community and digital programs. So I am really excited to be here today with Justin to not only provide practical strategies and best practice for running a giving day, but to also share with you some early results from the campaigns that we're seeing and what our customers are currently achieving. So over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining today. In addition to the titles you can see on the screen there underneath my bio photo, we've been very, very involved in giving days for a long time. The first giving day I was ever a part of was almost 10 years ago now, back in 2011 and 12 at Florida State University. For a long time, we've been saying we've done more than 60 online giving days. So I think if I went and checked again, it's probably more than 70 now. And we've been really fortunate to have a better than 98% goal achievement rate across all of those many dozens of giving days. Working with, well, for two reasons, I think. Number one, we understand what makes a giving day tick. We're very driven by video-driven donor engagement, which is something that's been a priority for a long time. But also, most importantly, just remarkable partners, from the University of Minnesota to the University of South Dakota to Washington State University to Santa Clara University to St. Mary's College of Maryland to other organizations even outside of higher education in the healthcare space and NGO space, international affairs, humanitarian programs. We've really been fortunate to work with just some amazing, innovative partners, and that's helped inform our strategy every step of the way. And I'm excited to have this conversation today because you'll hear us say this probably many times throughout. The number one biggest mistake a fundraising operation can make right now in the era of COVID-19 is not communicating with donors, not engaging with donors. So I do think it's very, very important that we, stick to not status quo. We'll talk about how to mix things up a bit and make it more appropriate for the time, but continuing to engage donors is just fundamentally important. And that's what we're going to cover today. First of all, the role that a giving day does play in a time of crisis. How much is the role a giving day plays in general? They're fundraising mechanisms. We know that, but a giving day is also a fantastic marketing and communications tool. It is one of the best ways to hold up and to illuminate everything it is around your program, your philanthropy program, obviously for the annual fund, but for leadership annual and major gift giving as well, as we've seen over the years. And I think the same is true right now. Obviously, there could be some tweaks, especially if you're having a giving day in just the next few weeks. We want it to look a little bit different, but a giving day can help us communicate a lot of those pieces. So we want to talk about how we can structure it and how we need to adjust the giving day and the tactics and the strategies for coronavirus and COVID-19, I think it would be inappropriate to say that we don't need to make any changes whatsoever if we have a giving day anytime over the next, month and a half. And then we'll see. This could extend quite a bit longer. I think people who are being realistic about this know there probably won't be a vaccine until sometime next year. And, normal as we knew it won't be back until that actually takes place. So even if you're thinking about a fall giving day, number one, do it. Number two, let's talk about how to do it in the webinar today. We're going to have some good, case stories and examples for everything from online engagement campaigns to actual online fundraising campaigns. The HubHub team has, some wonderful examples that we've already seen so far, and we'll share with you what some of our client partners are doing as well. And then of course, just ongoing storytelling. Another refrain you'll hear multiple times today is, if nothing else, this is a really good opportunity to focus on our core messaging, our storytelling, donor engagement through video-driven information and communication. And that's the type of thing where, maybe we pull back a bit on some of the fundraising right now and focus on a few more, appropriate funds at this point in time. But continuing to communicate with donors, to tell the story with donors, that's the type of thing that will set us up for a lot of success once we get past this initial phase with COVID-19 and into the recovery phase later this year into 2021. Kat, anything else you want to mention before I dig into some of the examples?
No, sorry, I was just trying to find my mute button. No, I think what you're mentioning there is really appropriate around, if you're not looking at fundraising at this time, that still sharing stories at this time is absolutely important. And you'll probably be seeing that from a lot of the brands that you see on TV every day, that you interact with every day, that they've switched strategies. And instead of perhaps pushing and really pushing sales or pushing their product, what they're pushing is the community behind their product, their values behind their product. So you can take some examples from the bigger brands that we're seeing and really use those within your community to keep the message about who you are, what you represent, and the values that you hold that are still really important at this time, and communicate those stories even if you're not fundraising, which is definitely good, a good tip there for moving forward. Absolutely.
So yeah, one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite movies is, Shawshank Redemption and talking about hope. And it's kind of a refrain throughout the movie if you've seen it. And, I love this particular quote right here. And I think if we think about the work that we're doing, whether it's, in good times or bad, economic downturns, boom times, COVID-19, or, a wonderful stretch period where good things are happening left and right, fundraising really is the business of hope. We are selling hope to our donors and our prospects, and hoping that in turn they'll support us and be able to realize that hope and those dreams that we're putting forth. So I think especially now, I mean, that's one of the things that we're probably all craving is, hope that things are going to get better. We're going to come up with a vaccine or a treatment, or we're going to figure out how to get a hold of this with testing, and things are going to be better. And when they are, we're really going to need our donors. And one of the most encouraging things we've seen from our client partners is how donors have really not stopped giving. As a matter of fact, in some cases, they're giving substantially more than we ever could have expected. The obvious cases around that are, of course, the COVID-19 relief funds, where you're being very direct and offering donors the opportunity to support PPEs or hospital beds or research into a vaccine, something along those lines. This is where in just a few days we've had Giving Day like small gift activity and Giving Day like major gift activity, where donors are putting up 6- and 7-figure funds to match some of these campaigns, and we're seeing it just really spread like wildfire, going in a way that we probably never would have guessed. So that's suggesting that, first of all, especially around things that are specific to COVID-19, donors are ready to go. But what's been even more surprising is how we've seen some of these 8-figure gifts come in to programs that really have little to nothing to do with COVID-19. Gifts for the arts, for museums, for other institutions and organizations that don't really play a direct role in the frontline fight against COVID-19, but are very involved, or just are fundraising. They're doing their work, they're telling their story. They're in a way sometimes bringing it back to how COVID-19 is impacting them, and that can be a compelling reason for donors to give right now too. So, once again, we'll say it many times throughout, now is not the time to stop engaging donors. We want to be reaching out to them, asking them how they're doing, getting their opinion, their feedback, letting them know how coronavirus and COVID-19 is impacting our mission, and telling that story in many ways as we can. And a giving day is a fantastic marketing tool. They're vibrant, they are visible. Most everyone who is following you in any capacity whatsoever, be it through email or social media or your website or through an online ambassador, will probably see a giving day. And one of the interesting things is, we're always so focused on what's the tangible in real life thing that we can actually, create during this giving day to sort of give it that, sense of place and the fact that it's a real event. Well, we don't have to worry about that this year, at least not for the spring and probably into the summer. The Giving Day truly is kind of back to its original intent as an online event, a virtual event. And that's all we have now in terms of, fundraising. I mean, I do know some organizations are doing calling using remote call centers. That's a really interesting concept. Direct mail is, usually a reliable tool, but it's a risky tool now, because we have absolutely no idea what the world's going to be like 2 weeks from now when the mail piece that we approved today actually hits mailboxes. So I know a lot of institutions that have really just put a hold on direct mail. And that is the one channel where I understand just putting a temporary pause because of how dramatically things can change in 2 weeks' time right now. But digital is perfect. I mean, most giving day platforms, you can change those, in the moments, if not the days before a giving day, pretty substantially. You can stop a communication, you can redo email, you can give ambassadors entirely new content, you can create new video content through a student gift officer program, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Online is dynamic. It's as agile as it gets. And the ability to shift, but still have a big, vibrant event that engages donors at a time when donors are giving, makes a giving day actually probably one of the best tools in your toolkit at this point in time. Like we said, that doesn't mean you can't just go ahead with whatever your plan was and ignore the fact that the world is in a pandemic and it's a very different place for at least the time being. So we will likely need to make some adjustments, and we have a lot of institutions out there who have already done this, made adjustments and shifted. First things first, this is the obvious one, and I know a lot of people on this webinar probably already had some success in this, but what is happening within your organization, at your institution, that you can directly tie to the frontline assault on COVID-19 and coronavirus? Those are the funds right now that with very little marketing are just absolutely, I mean, the growth is incredible. To think that we would be able to put a crowdfunding project out there and have it raise 7 figures within 24 hours with doing very little more than just sending maybe an email with a video is just unbelievable. But it makes sense. We all want to stop this, and we want to do everything we can to stop this. So for whoever has the means, if we can provide them that channel, especially through an organization or institution that they already support, it makes perfect sense that we're seeing this success. Same would be true, of course, of any treatment or vaccine research. If you are one of those organizations that especially heavily focuses on this, now is certainly the time to spin up a digital campaign and start engaging donors at every level, and at every level, truly, from the annual fund to the major gifts program, because that's what we're seeing, where we're promoting these projects, these campaigns. They're getting a few hundred gifts and tens of thousands of dollars per day in small gift activity, but then the major donors take notice as well. And I wouldn't just wait for that on accident. One of the other things we're doing is doing the remote digital engagement training for gift officers, using these tools to be active and actively engaging donors. So make sure that you're involving major gifts as well, because it's the type of thing where even if it's not a big gift now, it will be in some cases, but even if it's not a big gift now, this is really the beginning of cultivation for work around a vaccine research program or a nursing school or a medical school. The need has never been more compelling. And that can be, I think, the start of some really fruitful conversations in terms of engaging major donors as well, which again really isn't a whole lot different than your typical giving day. We always want to focus on major gifts in addition to the annual fund as well. That's what makes for really vibrant, comprehensive, fully effective online giving days, and that is certainly true right now. Even beyond those that those who are on the front lines right now, providing PPEs and ventilators and hospital beds. There are other funds that are very almost directly, or if not directly related to COVID-19. You think about a mental health program. We think about the organizations that are preventing and stopping domestic violence. We've heard some of the stories, and we know how difficult a time this is to be locked into a home setting with someone who is a violent person. So domestic violence, that can absolutely be something where we would want to take this opportunity, for lack of a better term, to tell our story, to engage donors, and to really make clear the impact that COVID-19 is having, but even well beyond COVID-19, why these are important funds to support. Nurses, doctors, medical students, I mean, they're of course on the front lines, but longer term, we are being shown, especially here in the States, how critically important our healthcare system is and how fragile it actually is. I don't think any of us would have imagined we'd ever got to a point where there just aren't enough hospital beds and supplies to keep people alive when otherwise we could. That's of course what makes this whole thing so terrifying, is the fact that if we push our hospital system past capacity, that's when things get really bad. So I think, again, starting some of those longer conversations and talking about why it's important to support these programs that provide our doctors and nurses of the future, and our treatment programs of the future, and research into vaccines and whatnot, those are really fruitful conversations to be having right now. And again, every single one of these things here could be a different fund on a giving day, and you could still run a giving day. The student emergency funds, again, that's probably been, I think, maybe the most popular, especially in the higher education space, because everybody's got students. Even if they don't have a medical program, they have students. And of course, this is another opportunity to, number one, fundraise for the student emergency funds, food pantries, mental health programs right now. But once again, a great conversation starter for major donors, whether it's a giving day that's coming up, or maybe you've already done a campaign, or maybe you're mid-campaign for a student emergency response fund. Carrying that conversation through development officers in a one-to-one way with prospects and donors who have shown interest in supporting, let's say, scholarships in the past. This could be a really good conversation starter in that space as well. Again, part of what we're trying to do here is obviously raise money, but really focus on that marketing and communications benefit of doing a giving day as well, and giving development officers, frontline fundraisers who maybe are struggling to fill their days right now because they can't be flying around the country and meeting with people, giving them the conversation starters and talking about how some of these things that are actually happening on an annual fund giving day level are a wonderful opportunity for conversations with them and their donors and prospects as well. So the SOS fundraising thing, this is one of those, and different people have different opinions on this, but I think as a firm at BWF, and myself in particular, we rarely want to lead with the message, we're falling apart unless you save us. That's not typically the most compelling message. It's not a mission. It's things are bad and that's not good, but maybe you'll support us and save us. Now, again, not during normal times would we ever recommend that, but these are not normal times. And I do think there is a pretty compelling case to say, we're going to be here no matter what, but exactly how strong and how effective we're going to be is up to you at this point. We need you to step up and give today so that we can continue, fulfilling and pursuing the mission that we've been pursuing all these years. Again, I think you still want to be careful in how you couch it, but people expect this. People in different areas and different ways are struggling. So it's not an unexpected or unusual request to say, help us keep our doors open, help us keep doing what we need to be doing. The "we need your help to survive" message, again, is not compelling long-term. So don't focus on this over time, and be ready that as soon as you possibly can to drop that message and go back to, once again, like we talked about at the beginning of the webinar, sowing the seeds of hope. And this is, if you are doing a giving day, and if you want to do a giving day a bit beyond just COVID-19 response and student emergency funds, this is the message I would recommend. We will be back, and we will be stronger than ever, thanks to donors like you who are making your gifts today. And I think that's that message of hope, fundraising for a strong future, that a lot of people are really craving right now. And to have an online community event, again, it's all virtual, but that's all we have right now. So to be able to have this online community event where people are sharing across social media and talking about the prospect of a bright future, that's a powerful tool that I think will drive our fundraising well beyond COVID-19, and probably help to endear a lot more people to our programs right now, because we are providing that ray of hope. So again, modify your giving day. But if we don't want to just focus on coronavirus, there are different ways of doing this as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with providing people with options across a campus, for example, still having 12, 18, 24 funds set up. I would limit the number of funds. This is another thing that, ordinarily we wouldn't necessarily recommend for a giving day. You want to try to provide donors with options where they can see themselves. And, I think some of the best giving days in terms of participation have, provided, fund options to support student groups and things like that. So there's a very good argument to make once the dust settles here and we clear from the initial shock of COVID-19 and start reopening, that this wouldn't be true anymore, much like sort of the SOS fundraising we just talked about. But for now, I do think we want to try to limit it, and we do want to keep the focus on something at least somewhat related to coronavirus and COVID-19. If you have impact funds, lead with that. I think that's just a no-brainer. That's a really important fundraising focus right now. It's going to resonate with the audience. It makes sense. It's what they're expecting, and it's what we probably should be doing right now. But to be clear, if we're going to lead with COVID-19, we want that to be a legitimate fundraising request. Don't really blur the lines. Don't go into a gray area. If what you're raising money for on your giving day isn't necessarily related to COVID-19 and coronavirus, at least not directly, that's okay. I think there are other things we can do right now that in a very good way are not things that we might typically do, but we can get away with at this point in time. We always want to fill the discretionary fund, the dean's fund, the executive director's project program, those things that have fallen out of favor, I think, in recent years because donors are demanding so much specificity. Well, I think we can make a much more compelling case now why we need these things. And this gets back to the storytelling piece. COVID-19 and from staffing levels to students, being sent home to, not having the room and board from tuition to people no longer showing up, and, canceling an entire season of performances. So many things taking place right now where, with great storytelling, we can raise a lot of money around, I think, a discretionary fund, an annual fund, the type of program that, again, we've been moving away from more and more because it's just been more difficult to fundraise. Well, now, compelling storytelling. And again, so much of what we're doing is, let's do it now because we have to, but even long term, I think with discretionary funds, I think one of the big pieces that's been missing is we've been so reluctant to say it does this. But we can do that. I mean, discretionary funds do real quantifiable things that we can demonstrate, that we can show, that we can find people who have been, positively impacted by those funds. So, even well beyond COVID-19, really think about, how do we tell the story of the discretionary fund using great video, using those who are impacted by it, but especially now when we want to maybe trim down to just one fund per unit during a giving day, this would be a recommended path to take. Again, some of the tactics that we've used for quite some time, I think can absolutely be retooled and reapplied in a slightly different way. So a lot of you have done giving days or have followed other top giving days. We've seen the social media challenges, and to us that typically means take a photo using the hashtag, show us a selfie of yourself wearing school gear, or take a photo of your pets dressed like this or that, or singing the school fight song or something along those lines. Do something around a hashtag that is a unifying, very easy to do, something as simple as snapping a photo, uploading it to Instagram or Twitter and using the hashtag. And then what we typically do is we just take all of those who've actually done that, use the hashtag, snap the selfie, sang with their pet, put on some school colors, what have you. We literally drop those into a hat and then pull out the names of the users. And then whoever wins gets to give $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 to the fund of their choice that's active on the giving day. So no one's actually winning any prize money, of course. They're simply winning the opportunity by luck of the draw to designate funds to a particular area that's active during campus. So, I don't think we should necessarily even scrap that. I think that's still something that is a fun, virtual, highly engaging, highly interactive activity that would probably work even better now if we do it in the right way. And the right way maybe isn't, post a video singing the fight song. Instead, maybe what we're doing is post a selfie, doing a good deed while physical distancing, and use this hashtag. Something along those lines where it's appropriate for the time. It's not ignoring the fact that we are in a pandemic, but it's giving people some sort of activity that's interactive, easy to do, while still supporting the campaign and building buzz around the campaign. Or, I mean, with the video singing the fight song, maybe that's even possible too. Maybe what we do is we ask people to do that, to do as sort of a togetherness activity. We can't be together physically, but online, everybody record yourself singing the fight song, use this hashtag. And then you could have a video editor take all of those 20 or 30 different pieces and put together this mashup montage of everyone singing, the school fight song, and show how we are together. It's kind of like, Hamilton on John Krasinski's Some Good News, when the performers get together and actually all sing at once on a Zoom screen. You could do that with a fight song. And again, that would be appropriate because the whole point is we can't physically be together, but we can be together virtually. And here's a really neat way of how we're going to do it. And you could really surprise people with it. If you did that fight song piece before the giving day and then edited it and then sent it out, I think during the giving day with 25 or 30 of your online ambassadors or top, social media followers, it would be a really fun piece. So, once again, we've seen social media challenges. We've been using them for quite a while now. They work great before the pandemic. They'll work great again after the pandemic, and they can work right now with the giving day during the pandemic. We just need to adjust it a little bit and make sure that we're being appropriate and cognizant of what's happening around the world. Fundraising is possible to do it. Again, before, during, and after the pandemic, strong donor engagement and warming is really important. We've very recently, and we've launched our student content team concept and the student gift officer concept. And, the University of South Dakota was, I'm pretty certain, the first institution in the world to actually do a student content team because we launched it with them. It's a new concept. And they've really, like most things, USD, University of South Dakota, is an incredible team. They are hardworking. They're extremely nimble. They just really do good work. And with the students we found, the students, matched that expectation. They were wonderful. And the idea with the student content team is you hire a certain set of students, small group of students. They're charismatic. They're good on video, both in front of and behind the camera. And you produce a ton of video content with those students. In a lot of cases, they're producing it. In some cases, you have it professionally produced, either in-house or with an outside agency. The goal is about one new video per week. A lot of times we're simply saying, here's what your gift is doing. Here's the impact of giving. Here's what's happening on campus because of philanthropy. Here's what donors like you make possible. And we're repeatedly doing that with the same voices, same faces over time. And what ends up happening is the alumni base starts to become familiar with these students and they start reacting better to videos. So, if you have a direct mail piece that goes out, and you have the student content team video going out at the same time, the same students who donors are familiar with, what we found is that actually the direct mail pieces perform quite a bit better because, you have a student saying, hey, you got this piece in the mailbox today. And, I just want you to know it's not junk. Your gifts make a big difference. Here's why. That has a really profound and positive impact on multi-channel fundraising. And then before the giving day, so the students before the giving day did, I think, a 12-part video series where what they did was brief vignettes, about 60 seconds in length, talking about the impact of giving to specific funds across campus during the giving day, reminding people that the gifts they made last year made a difference and we need to come back and give again this year. We had a 50% growth in participation during the giving day, a substantial, much higher than that growth, I think, in dollars raised during the giving day for USD. So same thing here, and it comes back to storytelling again. Who can you tell a story through? Who are your stars who can be, these sort of charismatic on-camera personalities? This is one of those things that if you start it today and start finding, of course, via remote and working with students who can produce remote video, but, you could build these students into the program for the next year, year and a half, 2 years, develop this familiarity with them and do everything from elevating multi-channel campaigns to dramatically increasing email open rates because the recipient knows the name of the student who's sending them that content. Really powerful stuff. And that's that engagement, that donor warming piece that I think is often missing in the digital space, the storytelling in between the solicitations that make the solicitations much more effective. I want to talk real quick on the SPU Together piece here. Kat, is there anything in particular that's jumped out to you that you want to comment on, or should I go ahead and just keep moving through to the next set?
Yeah, keep on moving through.
Awesome. Okay. So Stony Brook is another school that is doing, the official term is Digital Experience Ambassador, so DXA, but it's just another version of the Student Content Team or Student Gift Officer program. And my goodness, what an incredibly talented group. They are just remarkable. This is a team that we have searched for, interviewed, hired, trained entirely via remote over the past month because we had no other option. That was the only way we could get in front of these students. And working on their own from their homes, their parents' homes, their cars in some cases. I mean, it's just, it's remarkable, the creativity and the work ethic and the production from these students. And one of their concepts is this SBU Together campaign, where the students would take over Instagram and do Instagram stories. So there's 6 of them. So every 6 days, a new student takes over the Instagram stories piece and basically starts the day by saying, look, we can't be together on campus, and that is a huge bummer, but we love Stony Brook, and we can talk about that on Instagram. And you can go to @SBU Giving Day, so Instagram.com/SBU Giving Day, and you can see these campaigns every single day. It's a new student leading the way with content, Monday through Friday. We're not making work on the weekends. It's gone extremely well. They introduce themselves, they introduce the concept, and they do this. They put up a question and they say, look, what makes SBU unique, or what is your favorite place to eat on campus, or where's the best place to do homework, or questions like that. And those are the type of things that work really well at fostering that online sense of community, that engagement, that bringing us back to the fact that we're not all alone in these homes. We're just, well, yeah, we are in quarantine right now, but we're still together, and we can be that way, and we can have a community still in the virtual sense. And we get great feedback, about a dozen posts or questions answered per day, with just wonderful answers. And of course we can, share whatever we want, whichever, we don't have to put it out there if we don't want to. And a lot of the comments are just like you see right here, just wonderful, heartwarming messages that, really show the strength of that community. And then, this is something that, once again, we do that engagement, that warming piece, we bring a community together online. Very easy to pivot that into a Giving Day message. Giving Day is about coming together and doing what you can to support an institution. Almost always. It's almost always at least partially a participation-driven event, and that's what this is about. So we've been talking about being together for so long. Well, today is the Giving Day. Today we come together to support students, faculty, and campus. Today we help rebuild for a stronger future. I mean, again, ultimately, it comes back to hope. The hope that there is a brighter future ahead for us, that things are going to get better. And the most important piece, and the message that we want to drive home on the Giving Day, is it gets better starting with the support of our donors and our alumni and our supporters. Kat, I'll let you take it away from here.
Excellent. That's so great. I really love that last bit and that case study there about increasing engagement, because I think that was on the cards for Giving Days. And I think those of us who work on Giving Days and consult with our partners and work with these amazing teams kind of saw on the horizon, and we saw other brands kind of doing these amazing engagement campaigns with their customers and with their brands. And we thought, why don't we just tie that into a Giving Day? And it's almost that this situation that we now find ourselves in has almost brought that forward. So that time, instead of being 6 months from now or something that we see in the future, is here and right now. And for some of your supporters, it may be the difference between the realization that they didn't know that their university does stuff like this, and that they make such a difference, that the research that they do is leading the way, not just at the university, but within their local community, and maybe even nationally, in helping the worldwide effort. And then when that's all kind of backed onto with the the student aid relief, or making sure that the theater that is on campus is still there for when life resumes as normal, they just may not have known that, and now they know, and they're willing to do good things right now, and to have hope is high. So there's a good opportunity, and not a phrase that Justin and I use lightly, but with the intention to help you see that there is a way forward, even when everything may seem not possible at this time. So amazing, excellent. Gives me chills to see this stuff. All right, so I think we're just going to switch over screens. So adjust quickly.
And obviously, for everyone watching, we'll have the Q&A at the end, because as Kat mentioned, if you joined us a little bit late, this is actually a recorded version with internet and kids and dogs and everything else. We want to make sure that this is a seamless process for the viewers. So We're actually recording this the day before. You're watching it live right now, but we will have a live Q&A at the end. So keep those questions coming, drop them into the system, keep them handy, and we'll have a vibrant discussion once we get past the program part here.
Yep. Great. So in part two, we just heard some great recommendations there for adjusting and adapting our Giving Day strategies. And I really like what Justin mentioned there at the beginning, which was using fundraising as a vehicle for hope for our donors. And whether they're current donors who are familiar with our institutions, or those donors, as we just talked about, who are looking for hope that our institutions can provide. So in this next part of the webinar, we're going to take a look at how you can communicate to inspire hope, how you can increase donor participation once messages have been delivered, and how you can increase donor retention to increase donor loyalty as a follow-up. And we'll also take a look at a quick customer story before then wrapping up with that Q&A. Because it is really amazing that we have these opportunities to provide hope to our communities at this time. And Giving Days have always been excellent ways to engage with donors and to display the pride that exists within the institution's wider supportive community. And with the tips we've just heard from Justin, there are really clear ways to move forward with running a Giving Day, whether that's in the next month, the next few months, or even in the next year and beyond. So yeah, the first thing that we want to look at here is those communications. So the communications that surround a Giving Day have always been important, and if not critical to their success. And during this period, the communications you choose to send are even more important. There are lots of tips that I could have mentioned in this time, but being mindful of the time, I've trimmed it down to kind of just 3. And some of them will echo back to what Justin was saying earlier. So the first is being mindful and clear and transparent with the language that's being used. So regardless of the medium, whether it's email, social posts, or videos, everything that's communicated at this time will be under a microscope. And being clear and transparent with your language will mean that nothing can be misinterpreted when you're looking to communicate a clear message. Donors also want clarity and transparency at this time so that they feel informed and understand where they're making a difference and how their gift will help. And then finally, being mindful of your donors' financial circumstances at this time is really important. So if donors can give, emphasize the participation over the size of the gift. And if donors are unable to give, ensure that their support can be made in other ways, such as being an ambassador or volunteering in other ways, or participating in those social campaigns that Justin was saying. So if they can't give, they can share in singing the fight song and be a part of a campaign in that way. It doesn't just mean that people need to give at this time, they can engage in other ways. The second tip for your communications, and this backs on right to what Justin was saying earlier, is the storytelling and using that to inspire hope. And so often I see campaigns and appeals and Giving Days, and I'm guilty of this too, that focus more on the what rather than the why. And if you've ever thought of focusing on the why rather than the what, now is the time to do that. And this is, taking the time to talk more about the student and the way that they're going to benefit from the scholarship that may be provided to them rather than the university itself, or talking about the researchers within a building and the research that they're going to be able to do, the vaccines that they're going to be able to move forward with developing, even if it's not now, even if it's in 18 months, and what that means to them, to those who will receive those vaccines, and what that means for the future of, those patients who are being treated and the future within society, and really focusing on that why. So you want to, tell stories about people who will be positively affected by the generosity of others, and stories that are told in such a way that they inspire hope and others to feel that hope. We usually suggest that instead of telling lots of stories about lots of people in one video or one email, of picking one person's story to tell in that communication or in that social post, because it's easier for the audience to focus on just that one story and to understand how that story makes them feel, and then to act on those feelings. And then my final tip for your Giving Day communications is using donor-focused language. So this tip kind of goes hand in hand with the second one there, to make sure that the donor understands that what's being said to them is specifically for them. So this involves using more you-focused language rather than kind of we-focused language. And I provided an example here of a statement that's we-focused. So our university can create life-saving vaccines if donors give. And changing that to more of a you-led donor-focused statement, to say something like, your gift, no matter its size, will lead the way towards creating life-saving vaccines. And that last bit there really makes me feel that that message is for me, that it's for me to do something, to take some action, and an opportunity for me to make a difference in a time that I'm really wanting to make a difference. So if you've written your communications already, or you're yet to write them, do keep these tips in mind so that when you can start writing, you can start engaging with your audience. And these tips are also good if you're not fundraising at this time. If you're working on those engagement communications, telling stories, using donor-led language, you language, is really helpful for engagement communications, just as it is for fundraising communications. And then next, we want to move on to tips for increasing donor participation. So we mentioned it a few times, and if you've run a Giving Day previously, you know that Giving Days are, they're most successful when they focus on participation, even if there is a financial element to what you're fundraising for at this time. If you focus on participation, that income will follow. So first, you want to make sure that once you've clearly communicated the impact of a donor's gift, that the pathways to them making that gift are really clear. So make sure that there aren't too many clicks to reach the donation page, hopefully only one from whatever medium you've sent to making that gift. And to make sure that the donation buttons and links are really clearly visible for your donor, especially on mobile. People will be spending a lot of time on their phones right now. So if they're reading that email or looking at social media and making a gift, make it really easy to for them to make that gift and really visible on social media with donation buttons and mobile responsive forms and things like that. Secondly, you'll probably want to emphasize single gifts over regular gifts at this time. This is a big thing here in the UK. We always love our regular gifts, but now is the time for a single gift opportunity in terms of asking. Donors who are kind of worried about their financial position will be less encouraged to give a regular gift. And also take a look at the donation amounts on your forms, and to just make sure that what is on the donation form is really what works for giving right now. We did a webinar last week, and the University of Oxford had some feedback from their donor that said, I would have given, but the amounts were really high. And then I thought that, you know, I didn't think that my gift would actually make a difference or was what you were looking for. And when they went back and looked at their donation kind of amounts on their form, they realized that they could be turning off a lot of donors because the amounts on their form were, you know, were really just too high for the current and appropriate kind of situation. So, you know, maybe looking at kind of starting up at $25 or pounds and then working up from there, and just letting donors feel comfortable with the choice that they're making with their gift. So thirdly, you just want to make sure that either in your communications or on the online form that you are providing contact information for anyone interested in making larger contributions. Donors do give large gifts online, but if a donor wants to speak with someone about their gift, having contact information available can ensure that that donor is more likely to complete their gift. And then next, consider putting some budget towards retargeting ads on platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. It's really important for those who make it to the donation page but don't end up making a gift. These are donors who may need more information, so they may need, you know, a few more stories. They may be not fully bought into giving at this time, or maybe they got there and then they got distracted because there's lots of things distracting us at this time, and they just didn't make their gift at that time. But if you have retargeting ads kind of running in the background, they can serve those reminders to those people who are engaging with you, who got to the site but didn't end up making their gift, and can encourage them to fulfill that gift at that time. And then once donors have given, do encourage them to share the opportunity with their friends and their family and their networks via social media. Peer-to-peer giving is having a really big impact on giving right now, and with lots of gifts coming in from appeals, from referrals. So whether you do this formally through your ambassadors or off the back of a thank you email, encourage sharing to help increase that donor participation and to help get the word out. People really want to share good news right now, and this allows them to do that. And then finally, celebrate more than you ask, which may sound a bit backwards, but this is particularly suggested again for social media. And obviously we want to share those initial messages that encourage and ask for donations. However, once donors start to give, you can turn to a strategy of thanking rather than asking more. Because we see it all the time with social posts on giving days and just kind of online giving in general, that when you lead with a thank you post and you celebrate that giving and you celebrate those donors, that actually those posts have higher engagement and higher conversion rates than the post where the ask kind of was originally made. Because people love to celebrate. People love to see that what they've done is good, and they like to share that, and they like to feel good about the contribution that they've made. So definitely share those thank you posts and celebrate. And then moving on to donor retention, which is our final section before we move on to the customer story. Because as we said before, it's excellent that we have all these donors who are giving right now. So having a strategy for keeping these donors engaged is really important so that we can continue to engage with these donors long after giving day is over, or after the opportunity to give right now is over. So the thank you process that you have once a donor makes a gift online should be really watertight. If you haven't encouraged online gifts previously, this includes making sure that donors immediately receive their thank you via email, clearly stating all the details of their gift, its impact, and who to contact if they have any questions. For a lot of your donors, they may never have given online before, so they really want to feel reassured in this process, especially if you want them to refer others to making a gift. If they have a good experience and they see that it's safe and secure, they will encourage others to do the same. And as Justin said before, we're not really sure what's happening with post at the moment, so making sure that you have a nice process for sending out thank yous via email will just kind of make sure that donors feel informed about their gifts and aren't waiting for something in the post, which may never arrive to them. And then afterwards, you can, once you've kind of initially made that thank you, you can continue the conversation with your donors, even after their gift has been received. And I think that really encourages the engagement. And if you're running a giving day, you know, you'll still include them in those emails to kind of tell them how long is left, to encourage people to make their gift if they haven't already, or to thank them if they have, and to do kind of the sharing and sharing and sharing. And as the excitement and momentum builds, that want to share will increase. So keeping that engagement up and going is really important with those giving days. But even if you're kind of running something longer term, keeping up that momentum is still really important, and keeping in touch as to the impact of the gift that the donor has had, and the progress of the day, and the overall day success, and what happened as a result. And not just that day, but in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, what's the continuing story that's happening with their gift, and what's the impact that they're continuing to make, even though they made a gift 6 months ago. And it really, you know, helps those feelings of hope stay alive, and encourages the donor to give again, which kind of moves us on to our next point of asking again. So we want to not immediately ask again, but have a plan in mind for when we're going to be asking our donors to make another gift, thinking about the evolving situation, of being really clear on our strategy of what that next gift may be. So, you know, we talked before about those of you who may need to run emergency campaigns to keep the lights on, which you normally wouldn't, you know, run, and maybe you run that. And then in 6 weeks' time, you have a look and see what's happening, and to pivot that conversation and change the conversation. And the same is true for giving day. So maybe you ran your giving day, and the situation has changed, or the situation has become something different, and how can those donors continue to still make a difference and to continue to provide hope even though Giving Day has passed. For a lot of us here in the UK, that next ask is probably going to be a regular gift ask, but we can make sure that we just have a plan for what that next ask is going to be, to make sure that the conversation keeps on going and we keep those donors engaged. And then finally, we just want to kind of repeat that process and have this be a process, not just for Giving Day, but for any point at which a donor makes their gift. So we have a quick kind of case study here. So before I dive into this kind of customer story, I just want to preface that this isn't specifically about a Giving Day, but the results of what the institution achieved are very similar to if they had run a Giving Day. And by showing you this example, I hope to encourage those of you who have previously run a Giving Day to feel confident that moving forward with your planned Giving Day is still a viable option. And given the recommendations that Justin has provided earlier, and for those of you who haven't run a Giving Day before, but are considering it, I hope this example kind of provides you with the confidence to know that donors are giving, even if a Giving Day is something that's completely new to your team. So this institution is here in the UK, and they have previously run fundraising campaigns for research priorities, both at the major and mass participation levels, but haven't, as I said before, run a Giving Day. They launched their campaign in early April, and within the first 24 hours had more than 400 donors, or what is essentially a Giving Day. And I called up this institution and I said, hey, how was your makeshift Giving Day there on Friday? And they were like, I know, it's amazing. We can't believe that that happened. And yeah, we just kind of shared in the success of that, talked about what was next. But yeah, they just couldn't believe how, you know, off the back of one email, what had been possible. So now they've raised, continuing on with this campaign, more than £173,000 from over 820 donors, which is amazing. It makes me feel a bit flushed to think about it, because it's just so amazing how people are stepping forward. Yeah, and all just in a matter of days, and all from online, which is amazing. So I pulled some charts, because whenever we talk about case studies, people always want to know and look at the data behind what's going on. At least I do anyways, because I'm a bit of a data nerd. So taking a look at the gifts over time, we can see that initial spike, so the kind of over 400 gifts initially, followed by peaks and troughs of giving. And I think sometimes people can look at this and be a little bit worried about those peaks and troughs, but those peaks and troughs are totally normal in online giving. You know, weekends come and then the week comes back in. Weekday giving is higher probably than weekend giving, even though it all kind of feels like a blur at the moment. But those peaks and troughs definitely still follow the activity that's happening behind the scenes of the institution sending those emails and posting those social posts. And that will be what is driving those online donations. So that continuing engagement. And then when we look at the channels that are triggering those donations on the right-hand side here, we can see that the majority were triggered by email, which is great because those emails are being sent out and they're being picked up. But we do have a small but decent amount of donors saying that their gifts were a result of social media and word of mouth, which is really great and probably higher in terms of where those gifts have been seen before in other kind of online campaigns. So it's good to be paying attention to where those gifts are coming from, because you can then use that to then inform strategies moving forward about how you inform other audiences and other constituencies, maybe the community, about giving to this campaign. And then moving on to the relationship to the university, we can see that the majority are alumni, which is what we probably would expect, but it's nice to have the data to confirm it and back that up. But we can also see a good amount of staff who are giving in high numbers, which is great for internal engagement around, you know, the institution, to see staff giving. And there's also quite a lot of people in the other category who are giving. And so I kind of looked into that a little bit more. And those are people within the local community or friends of people who work at the university who saw this, who probably live locally and wanted to give because what's going on is happening right in their backyard. And they want to help their local community and strengthen their local community. So that's really great to see. And then finally, on the right again, we have gifts by their amount given. That's always a question. What's the average gift? So we can see that lots of people are giving at that 25 pound level, but then there's also lots of people giving at 10 pound, 50 pound, 100 pound, and then you can see a nice little kind of trickle of larger gifts. And this is really great for building that pipeline for your major donor kind of colleagues, and helping to make sure that their pipeline is still is still secure. They're still able to have conversations and to engage with those individuals to see how they can help in other ways. And something that I was thinking about before when Justin was talking about our major gift colleagues was that this campaign could be an opportunity for someone to make a difference in a way that they didn't know how. And you were the institution who let them do that, and who knows where that's going to lead. So they could give you a 10 pound gift now, and who knows where that's going to lead. They could give you 1,000 pounds. They can give you £1 million, and who knows where that's going to lead. But now starts the conversation around giving. And I think that's a really great opportunity for us to kind of see where that goes right now, and to give people that hope. And just a final kind of thought here for anyone who may be wondering how this appeal compares to previous ones. So, do they run direct mail and telephone campaigns and things like that? And they do. And this appeal has outperformed both direct mail and telephone campaigns that they ran in the last 6 months. So I think I'll just leave it there for some food for thought. But yeah, just a really quick run through of what we're currently seeing. And I really hope that it provides a bit of insight into what we might expect if we're running any appeals, including a giving day. And with that, I think we're going to move it on to the live portion of today's webinar, unless, Justin, you have anything else you want to add.
I cannot wait to hear the questions and have a good conversation.
Great. Let's move on over to that. Hi, everybody. We are here live, so Justin and myself. And as I said, we will less talking from us, more Q&A from you. We do have a question. So this question comes from Stephanie. And if you do have any other questions, type them into the questions tab and we'll get to them. I know that we're running a little bit over time, but hang around, chill out. Enjoy your evening or your afternoon with Justin and I for a bit. But we have a question from Stephanie, and she has asked, we have shifted our giving day and are revamping the communications plan. We will only be sending emails and posting on social media on top of peer-to-peer outreach. Do you have a recommended frequency for email communications to market the giving day? So beforehand and probably during the day as well. We're trying to be sensitive that we don't inundate people on top of all the other COVID-19 messages they are receiving.
Yeah, I think... Kat, do you want to go ahead and take first stab at that?
Go ahead. No, I think it is kind of good to be thinking about the fact that people are receiving a lot of messages right now. And you may even mention that in kind of the message that you send out to people to say, we know that you're hearing a lot from people, and it's almost overwhelming. And I feel like acknowledging the fact that that is happening almost kind of makes them realize that you realize that that's happening, and you're almost kind of on the same page from the very beginning. But then just bringing it back to why that message in particular is important for them and them as part of your community. And you didn't want to leave them out because you didn't want them to miss out. And maybe providing, another, maybe you don't normally do this, but you can say, if hearing about Giving Day isn't something that you want to hear about right now, here's the link where you can tell us to not email you about Giving Day, and we won't. And then you can remove them from those communications.
Yeah, I think that's perfect advice, really. I think be more mindful and understand what's happening. And I think addressing the fact that you know the situation and, allowing people to just opt out of that particular Giving Day email communication is wise. And I do think maybe drawing down a bit of the frequency, but I also think that most institutions don't email nearly enough during Giving Days in the lead up to or during. So, if you're typically doing 6 emails on a Giving Day, maybe you knock that down to 3 or 4 or something along those lines. You do want an email for sure, but you want to change the strategy a bit. Be cognizant and clear that you know the situation, you understand where people are coming from, but also this situation is the reason why we need to be doing the Giving Day, and we hope you'll support us. So, don't not email. Definitely email. Don't just email once. Email several times, but be more mindful about it. To Kat's point, and think about the messaging and how you're communicating via email. The same is true of all other channels. And also, if we're going to be emailing less, really focus on content on other channels, on social media. Have a very vibrant, robust video campaign ready to go for the Giving Day, so that if people aren't seeing it as much in their inbox, they have the opportunity to see it more through peer-to-peer sharing on social media.
Yeah, that peer-to-peer engagement could be really powerful right now, especially for kind of spheres of influence and what people are kind of influenced by at the moment, which it could be their friends and their family rather than the institution itself. I'm going to give another shout out for data. And if you've run a Giving Day previously and you usually send emails before Giving Day, kind of send out your first email, see what the open rate is, see what the click rate is, send the next one, see what the open rate is, see what the click through rate is, and look at your engagement and see if it's any different. And if it isn't any different, then you can feel confident moving forward. And if it is different, then you can change strategy and maybe decide to email less. But using your data to guide you is always my way forward. So using that. I have a couple more questions. So one from Anne here, who is curious about the case study that we finished there from the UK, wanting to know what it entailed. Was it just email? And what were they fundraising for? So they have done email and social media, started off with email and have kept on perpetuating the communications online. And then I think there was a second email sent to donors to just kind of update and thank them for the amazing kind of giving that they had done. And they are fundraising for it. So it's a one-all, it's a catch-all. So what Justin was saying before about having just one fund, but that one fund will help to fund any kind of project that is either known to the university now or not known, which, there's a lot of uncertainty and it's difficult to plan for everything. So if you're fundraising for that kind of relief, whether you know about it or not, then that allows you, your donors to kind of feel like they're giving for now, but they're also giving for the future. And that kind of giving had fallen out of favor. And I think Justin is right, but I think that it's kind of coming back because people are kind of really understanding that might be what's necessary right now. And then another question. And if you want to know more about that particular university, they will be one of our 3 case studies in next week's webinar. I'm still not telling you which one it is, but they have 3 more webinars next week, and they will be in one of them. So another question here is, how effective are social media campaigns when you are a smaller organization without much of a social following?
That is a great question, and I think it's a very different answer than it would have been even a few years ago. More so than ever before, especially on Facebook pages, the number of people following your accounts really makes no difference. There is almost no organic reach on Facebook anymore. So sure, you of course get a few more people if you have 100,000 versus 1,000, but it's still a very minimal reach if you're only posting, and especially if you don't have online ambassadors driving activity. Advertising, especially on Facebook and Instagram, is the great equalizer there. And it's why it doesn't matter how big your base is anymore. As long as you know who to target, as long as you know what your audience is interested in, as long as you have the content to run a campaign, and as long as you have some ad budget, it really doesn't take much. $500 goes a long way on a Facebook and Instagram ads campaign, and it gets your content seen and engaged with, and people will take action on it. So, I think social media campaigns for small organizations with a tiny following can be incredibly powerful if you have good content and you know how to set up a Facebook and Instagram ads campaign. But more so than ever before, it's a little different on Twitter, and it's a little different on Instagram as well. If you have a big following, it's more likely people will see and take notice of your posts, of course. But Facebook is the big one. It's where, the majority of people, especially donation giving age people, 30 to 60 or 70, whatever, spend a lot of their time. And organic reach just doesn't really matter. But ads do in a big way. So think about advertising, think about a small budget for it. $500, $1,000 goes a very long way. and will probably deliver a pretty good return, not necessarily directly on people clicking on the campaign and giving, but in creating that buzz that drives people to take action on an email, for example.
Yep, definitely. So any other final questions, do just type them in. Justin, I have one question for you. So this is more on major donors and anyone who may be listening who is thinking about their major donors and they're worried about getting those matches and those challenge gifts, either because they're not sure if their donors still would like to give at this time, or that face-to-face meeting that is no longer possible. Do you have any suggestions for how they could approach that now that the situation is different?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Do not stop fundraising. Do not stop cultivation. Do not stop talking to donors. They're out there, and a lot of them really want to hear from you. And one of the things that we've just launched in the last couple of weeks at BWF Groundwork is remote digital donor engagement workshops for gift officers who don't know what to do with their time and aren't sure how to use these tools. Zoom, Facebook Live, FaceTime, taking the time now to set up a Facebook page or a Facebook group. Every gift officer, not just a digital development officer, every modern gift officer should have a LinkedIn account, personal account, and a Facebook page. Not your personal profile, it's different, but an actual Facebook personality page. They have different sections. There's business pages and there's community and public figure pages. We, more than half of your constituents are on Facebook, and that's conservative. The numbers are probably quite a bit higher. A lot of them get their news from Facebook every day. A lot of them interact with people on Facebook. Saying that, I don't want to have a Facebook page, for example, is basically like saying, I'd rather not have a telephone. I just don't really want to call donors. It's not my style, not my speed. It's critically important that every development officer has digital capabilities. We've heard about the digital development officer programs, and that's a really good hiring decision, a really good staffing resource decision to actually have a digital program, whether it's mid-level or major gift or qualification or discovery. We see a lot of that. But right now, especially, now is the time to provide your team with that type of expertise, to be able to, confident in, empowered to use digital to engage donors, because that's the only way they can engage donors. That's the only way they'll be able to engage donors for months. We mentioned this earlier. That might be the only way you can engage donors for another year. We can't stop fundraising for a full year. We can't stop talking to major donors and prospects for a full year. They're waiting. They're happy to have these conversations. Again, a lot of the client partners we work with are having a lot of success using FaceTime, using Zoom, using Facebook groups to, really inspire a lot of really good chatter. It doesn't mean you have to push for a solicitation right now. I understand that some people are maybe delaying that just a bit or kind of recalibrating how you make the ask, but cultivation and stewardship should be going at full speed right now. Storytelling is not just for the annual fund. It's critical on that one-to-one or one-to-a-few level for the major gift piece. And the only way we can do that is through digital remote means. We can call people on the phone, we can text them, we can email them, we can post online. And it works. We've seen it work really well at a lot of institutions. So on the bright side, one of the things I'm hoping is after we get past the pandemic, a lot of organizations will be better equipped to use digital for major donor engagement. But right now is the time to get started. There's no reason not to, because, what else would development officers be doing if they're not, engaging donors and prospects via remote?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you. Okay, I think that is all of the questions that we've had come through. So thank you so much. If you have any other kind of feedback or anything else you want to say before you leave, you can pop it in the Q&A bit and we will see it. They do just come through to us. Before we sign off, we just wanted to let you know of a few more resources. So I did mention the webinars that we have next week with those institutions where we'll be talking about relief for student hardship. So they'll be talking through what they've been doing, how it's been going, and what they're planning to do next. So some good case studies there for anyone looking to do fundraising around emergency student support. We do have a Giving Day webinar series. So if you are looking for more tips about running a Giving Day, you can go check that out. We also have something new called the Fundraising Copy Checker, which is available through probably our social media is probably the best way to find it on LinkedIn. It's really addictive. It gives you a score. It helps you write better copy for fundraising. I love it. Go check it out. And then we have blogs. So Justin has some blogs. Hubbub Fundraising has blogs. We've got blogs coming out of our ears. So if you need any more advice, any more tips, you can look to our blogs and find more advice there. If you want to get in touch with Justin and I, here's our contact details. I'll try and send out the slides later this week to everybody. But yeah, get in touch with us. We're happy to have a chat. Happy to help in any way that we can right now, even if that's just a conversation on the phone. And with that, we want to thank you for your time, your attention, and wish you all the very best of luck, as well as all the health and happiness in the next couple of weeks. Anything else, Justin?
No, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for the questions. We hope to follow up with you afterwards. And thank you, Hubbub, for this opportunity.
No problem. Thanks for having, thanks to you for joining us. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Bye.